Hey everyone, so just want to talk about utilizing the bounce in different ways out of different situations depending on the lie that you're playing from. I think this is something that's probably not talked about enough, and people don't really understand how to use the bounce out of certain situations and why it's designed the way it is. So originally, obviously, with a sand wedge, the bounce was designed a long time ago to help golfers get out of the sand, right? Before there wasn't much here, and that leading edge, once it got in the sand, and you still see it today, people play it with a square club face, drive that club face down in the sand, it buries every single time, okay? So that bounce was designed initially to help that club slide under the ball out of the sand, okay? And now it's certainly something that's useful to understand from different situations from the fairway, depending on if it's wet, if it's firm, knowing how to play it and where to play it from is very, very important. So this vast majority, I have a dual grind wedge. I've always liked that because it provides a lot of versatility with the different shots that you can play and how you set your hands up at impact, at setup. So we'll start by talking about the vast majority of the bounce, which is right here in the center of the club, okay? Now, this part of the golf club, particularly out of soft lies, very soft ground, a little bit of rough, it's really important to use the center part of the bounce, okay? So we want to set up fairly square to the ball and let that thick part of the back of the club engage with the turf, all right? Now, once we start talking about firmer lies, like I typically use 8 or 10 degrees of bounce here in the United States. Growing up in Australia, real firm, real fast conditions, I used to use usually 4 or 6 degrees, so there was almost no bounce back here, because if you have any bounce in Australia, as soon as it hits the ground, it almost feels like it bounces over the top of the golf ball and you end up skinnying a lot of your shots, right? So, that's going to determine here in the US, particularly in the soft, I'd say anywhere from 8 to 12 and whatever you're comfortable with. But having this ground out toe on the club is also very important, as is the ground down heel, okay? So, when you get on a very firm lie over here, start using the toe of the club a little bit and getting that handle up in the air, so that when there's less bounce here, when you do have that firm lie, you can use the toe of the club a little bit better, okay? It's going to help that club go through the ground, stop it from bouncing when you hit that firmer turf, okay? Now likewise, when you lie the club flat on the ground, especially out of rough, you don't want too much here. The less you have here on the heel side of the club, the less it's going to grab in the ground, right? Okay, so it helps that club slide through the turf, come out the other side, all right? So remember, soft ground, try and use a fairly square approach and utilize this thicker part of the back of the club here, the bounce. Firmer lies out of the rough, start thinking about getting the handle up or the handle down to use the heel or the toe of the club a little bit more. So I think just understanding this is certainly going to help you when it comes to making the correct decision about what shot to hit when you're faced with different shots around the green.